Hey everyone, it's Reena Jadhav with the Live Longer podcast and health boot camps, and here with Dr. Brian Mowll answering a very important question that you guys sent in, which is how do I get rid of my diabetes? It's ruining my life. And of course, there's some of you who are worried about diabetes because it runs in your family, and they've asked, well, how do I prevent it? How do I make sure I'm not a casualty because I'm about 45, 46, and I'm starting to worry if I am about to get diabetic. So Dr. Mowll, those two questions, you run so many great summits. You just had a summit a few months ago as well. Talk a little bit about what are the big insights on how to treat, and then we'll go into how to prevent.
Yeah, well, I think, it's going to be a similar answer because I think to prevent type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, or maybe you already have prediabetes and you want to prevent yourself from moving into type 2 diabetes, I think the best thing to do is act as if you have it now and make the changes now that you would make to reverse it. Because if you do that, you're pretty much ensuring that you're not going to get it in the first place. So I think if you follow the same advice, I think it's going to make a big difference and probably get you where you want to be. So to reverse type 2 diabetes or prediabetes, there's some things that we need to do. And it's going to go back to addressing the root causes. So if you watched some of our previous videos, we talked about the root cause of type 2 diabetes being insulin resistance, and same with prediabetes. So the question really becomes, how do we reverse insulin resistance? How do we become more sensitive to this hormone insulin to allow the body to start to work well? And I'll say just one other thing before I answer that question, which is if you have type 2 diabetes and you've had it for many, many years, there may be a point where you may not be able to get all the way back to completely normal blood sugar and stable, because at some point, some of the organs start to malfunction to the point where it becomes nearly impossible to get them back to perfect health. But even with that said, you can still get a long way there. So I think no matter where you are, no matter how long you've had diabetes, no matter how bad it is, it's worth it. It's worth making some significant changes to turn things around. So what do we need to do to improve insulin sensitivity and reverse insulin resistance? The first thing we need to do is address the root underlying causes of that insulin resistance to begin with. And there's two main ones. One is chronic systemic inflammation, and the second one is accumulation of fat around the organs, particularly the liver and the pancreas. So the way we're going to do that is by eating a diet that's going to allow us to burn more fat and reduce inflammation. So that becomes a diet that is minimally processed, real food, whole food, and foods that don't contribute to inflammation. One example is processed refined vegetable oils. So many people have been taught that vegetable oils like corn and canola oil and so forth, soybean oil, are heart healthy, when in fact the research indicates that they're highly inflammatory. They're highly refined. The chemical process they go through damages the fats to the point where they trigger an oxidative stress and inflammatory reaction. And they drive inflammation because they're what are called polyunsaturated omega-6 fats, which are pro-inflammatory. This is just one example of a food that we've been taught is healthy but can drive inflammation. So if we want to eat an anti-inflammatory diet to reduce inflammation, we're going to eliminate those refined processed vegetable oils. And we're going to focus on things like real foods, plant foods, like lots and lots of fibrous vegetables, some fruit, which can be healthy as well. Certainly, if we're going to eat animal proteins, we're going to eat high quality, grass-fed, organic, free-range or free-roaming animal products that are grown in a very healthy, stress-free environment. We're going to eat The same thing, if we're going to eat eggs, we're going to eat eggs that are grown in that type of environment, because all of these foods carry information with them that wash over our genes and determine how we express our genes towards diabetes or away from diabetes, towards inflammation or away from inflammation. And then, of course, the healthy fats like olive oil and avocados and avocado oil. These are called monounsaturated fats, as well as nuts and seeds, which can be healthy for many, many people. And then if we're going to eat saturated fats, it's good to get them from plant bases like coconut, for example, which is much easier to burn. So we eat healthy fats, we eat clean sources of animal protein if we choose to eat animal protein, and then we eat lots and lots of healthy vegetables and some fruit as well. So that's a real food, whole food diet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can use certain botanicals and things like turmeric, for example, and black cumin seed oil. And there's lots of other anti-inflammatory botanicals that we can use to help reduce inflammation. The other part of it is burning more fat, as I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And fat burning comes by encouraging your body to burn fat over sugar. So this is where I recommend for people with prediabetes and type 2 diabetes to eat a carb-restricted diet, because if we're eating lots and lots of carbohydrates, particularly refined processed carbohydrates, then our body is going to store the fat that we eat, and any extra carbs that we eat, it's going to store them as fat as well. We're not going to burn fat. So we've got to restrict our carbs to the ones that I mentioned, and then focus on burning more fat. We burn more fat, then we start to burn through the fat stored around our organs, and then we start to become more sensitive to the hormone insulin. So decrease inflammation and decrease the fat stored around our midsection. We start to improve insulin sensitivity, and then we start to get better control of our blood sugar. We do that over a long enough period of time in a healing environment by addressing things like stress, make sure we're sleeping well, moving our body, which we're going to talk about all of those.
Mm-hmm.
Then we can really create healing and reverse these conditions.
That sounds incredible. Yeah. So for the rest of you, make sure you tune in to the next set of interviews, which are going to be around stress and all the other ways that you can do lifestyle changes to get your diabetes under control. Thank you, Dr. Mowll. And for the rest of you, we'll see you on the other episodes.